The battle wasn't over. She knew that there would be skeptics, obstacles, more silences to break. But tonight, something had shifted. A floor had been reclaimed, and it had waited for them. 3 weeks later, the Langley Community Center opened its ballroom for the first adaptive dance workshop, part of the newly minted Still Moving project. The room had been a drab meeting hall just a month ago, but now it shimmered with soft golden lights, hand-painted murals of dancers in motion, and a brand new sound system donated anonymously, though everyone suspected Jasmine had something to do with that. Outside the building, a line had already formed. Children with leg braces, grandmothers with walkers, teens who sat in silence, but whose eyes darted toward the music. It wasn't a traditional crowd, but then this wasn't a traditional program. Maya stood by the entrance in a deep blue cardigan and soft sneakers, her prosthetic fully visible beneath rolled-up jeans. She welcomed each person with a quiet word or a tap on the shoulder, remembering names, even when she'd only heard them once. Inside, Jasmine waited by the front table, organizing registration forms. Her movements had become quicker, more assured. She still had to ask for help sometimes, but she did so without shame. Raymond arrived first from the Langley board, carrying a crate of bottled water and muffins. "You sure you want me managing snacks?" he joked. "I was thinking of teaching the two-step." "Only if you don't mind getting shown up by a 9-year-old, Jasmine replied with a smirk. One by one, volunteers filtered in. Kevin from the resort helped tape soft mats to the floor. 2 nurses from the local clinic offered to stay and assist. Even one of the former resort security guards arrived and sheepishly offered to DJ. Then the doors opened. They came slowly at first. An elderly couple holding hands. A young boy pushed in by his older sister. But once the music began, the hesitation dissolved. Maya stood at the center guiding a rhythm with her claps. It wasn't about footwork. It was about feeling. "Hands up," she called. "That's it. Don't worry about matching me. Just match your own beat." Jasmine moved through the room, encouraging, adjusting, smiling. When she saw a young girl hesitating by the corner, she rolled over and offered a hand. "I'm Jasmine," she said. "Want to show me your version of a spin?" The girl giggled and twirled in place. Jasmine clapped. The girl's mother wiped her eyes nearby. Midway through the session, Maya dimmed the lights just slightly and changed the music. Moon River floated through the speakers again, this time played by a local pianist and violinist who had offered their time. Maya turned to Jasmine across the floor. "Partner?" she asked, lifting a brow. Jasmine rolled forward, always. Their hands met again. But this time, the dance wasn't just for them. It rippled through the room. One by one, the other dancers, young, old, seated, standing, began to sway. Some held hands, others simply moved as they could. The music stretched like a ribbon, binding them together in silent understanding. Robert Langley sat near the wall, his caregiver beside him, his eyes watched Jasmine the entire time. When she turned in her chair, her arm raised, his left hand lifted slightly, an echo of their old waltz. After the music ended, Maya spoke. "This," she said to the room, "is what movement looks like when nobody is told to sit still." The applause wasn't thunderous. It was better, sustained, warm, and filled with something few people had felt in that room before, belonging. Afterward, Jasmine helped pack up supplies, laughing with a group of teens who had stayed to clean. Maya walked over and handed her a cup of iced tea. "You still glowing?" Maya said. "It's sweat," Jasmine replied, grinning. "And maybe a little blow." They sat together for a moment on the side of the room, watching families linger and talk. "You know," Jasmine said softly, "there was a time when I thought my story ended with the accident, like the rest was just me sitting in someone else's movie." Maya turned to her. "You rewrote the script." "No," Jasmine said. "We did." Maya's eyes softened. "You're just getting started, child." As the final guests left and the lights dimmed, Jasmine looked out across the ballroom, the floor they had claimed. The space that now pulsed with purpose. She thought of her mother's laughter, her father's strength, the promise of every step Maya had tapped into her soul. She had been alone. Now she was leading, still moving, always moving. 2 weeks passed in a blur of music, laughter, and new beginnings. The still-moving project quickly outgrew the modest Langley Community Center space. Every session saw more participants, veterans with amputations, grandmothers with fading memories, teens in wheelchairs craving confidence. Word had spread beyond town limits, catching the attention of local media. A journalist from the Austin Chronicle came by, scribbling notes as she watched Maya and Jasmine lead a circle of dancers through a rhythm exercise. Jasmine had never felt more alive. Each morning she woke with purpose. Her days were filled with planning, coordinating volunteers, reviewing grant applications, and designing flyers that emphasized what she now called invisible victories, moments when someone who hadn't smiled in years began to hum, or when a father with a cane took 3 confident steps forward for the first time in months. She had become the pulse of something larger than herself. But momentum has a way of stirring old dust. One afternoon, as Jasmine returned from a meeting with a local school district about integrating still moving into their special education curriculum, she found Cynthia sitting on a bench outside the center. Her sleek gray suit stood in sharp contrast to the mural behind her, bright silhouettes of dancers mid-motion. She looked like a statue misplaced in a playground. "I didn't expect to see you here," Jasmine said, adjusting her brakes. "I didn't expect to come," Cynthia replied flatly. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Cynthia reached into her bag and pulled out a glossy brochure. It bore the Langley Holdings logo and read, "Annual Legacy Award nominees." Jasmine's name was listed second. "They're nominating me?" Jasmine asked, surprised. Cynthia nodded. "For innovation in community outreach and for salvaging the company's image after the incident at the resort." Jasmine raised an eyebrow. "You mean the incident where you tried to erase a woman for being too real?" Cynthia exhaled slowly. "I didn't come here to fight." "Then why are you here?" "To warn you," Cynthia said, her tone clipped. "There are members of the board who see this project as a sideshow, a charity that distracts from your family's legacy. They're waiting for you to slip to give them a reason to reclaim control." Jasmine stared at her. "And you?" "I see potential," Cynthia said carefully. "And risk. You've built this fast, Jasmine. Too fast. You've rallied public sympathy. But that's fickle. One mistake, one misstep, and it all unravels." Jasmine's eyes narrowed. "Is that a threat?" "It's a fact," Cynthia said. "And you deserve to know it." A silence stretched between them. Then Jasmine leaned forward. "You came all this way to plant doubt. But let me tell you something. I've already fallen, Cynthia. I've already been pushed aside. The only thing left to lose now is fear." Cynthia studied her a moment longer. Then she stood, brushing invisible lint from her lap. "The awards ceremony is next month. If you're serious about protecting this place, you'll come. Let the board see you play the game." Jasmine didn't reply. That night, Jasmine couldn't sleep. Cynthia's words clung to her skin like humidity, uncomfortable and inescapable. She rolled onto her side, staring at the ceiling fan. Had she been moving too fast? Could this all fall apart? The next morning, Maya arrived early. She found Jasmine in the storage room sorting donation boxes with a distracted expression. "You look like someone poured salt in your sugar," Maya said, leaning against the doorframe. Jasmine sighed. Cynthia came by. That woman could sour lemonade with a smile. "She said the board is watching, waiting for me to make a mistake." Maya walked in and sat on one of the folding chairs. "Well, they'll be waiting a long time." "You don't think I've rushed this?" Jasmine asked. "Built it too fast. I think when the house is burning, you don't wait for the blueprints. You get people out. You build what you can with what you have." Jasmine looked at her. "She wants me to go to the awards ceremony." Maya considered that. "Do you want to?" "I don't know. It feels like playing their game." Sometimes, Maya said, you show up to their table just to flip it. Later that day, Jasmine made her decision. She called Raymond, asked him to pull a favor with the board, and submitted a formal request. The still-moving project would be showcased as the centerpiece of her nomination. Not just her story, but the voices, steps, and triumphs of every participant. I won't stand on a podium, she told him. But I'll bring the floor with me. The days leading to the ceremony were a whirlwind. Kevin helped compile footage and testimonies. Maya recorded a heartfelt introduction. Volunteers rehearsed a performance, a moving blend of spoken word and dance that captured what the project meant. Movement, no matter the odds. The night before the event, Jasmine stood alone in the ballroom where it had all begun. The lights were dimmed. The echoes of old music and laughter lingered like memories in the walls. She whispered into the stillness, "We're ready." The Langley Legacy Awards were held in the heart of downtown Austin. Inside a grand concert hall that once hosted symphonies and galas for oil barons and politicians. On the night of the event, the marble floors gleamed under chandeliers the size of trucks, and a red carpet unfurled down the staircase like a river of velvet. Guests in black tie attire filled the room, murmuring in measured tones, clutching programs that listed sponsors and honorees with gold embossed lettering. Jasmine sat at the base of the steps in a tailored black dress, simple but elegant, her wheelchair gleaming as if it too understood the significance of tonight. Maya stood beside her in a flowing wine-colored blouse and slacks, her prosthetic polished, her curls framing a face set with quiet fire. "You ready?" Maya asked, eyes twinkling. "I was born in silence," Jasmine said softly. "Tonight I speak." They entered together, and as they did, heads turned. Some out of curiosity, some in discomfort, but others, those who had followed the project online, who had watched the viral dance video, smiled, nodded, and leaned toward companions to whisper her name. Inside, the stage had been transformed. A portion of it had been cleared and lowered, creating accessible ramps and an open space lit with warm tones. Jasmine's request had been honored. If she could not rise to the stage would lower to meet her. Cynthia stood off to the side near the main sponsor table, her face unreadable. When her eyes met Jasmine's, she gave the briefest of nods. The ceremony opened with the usual acknowledgements. Sponsors, major donors, a montage of Langley Holdings milestones. Jasmine watched, detached, until Raymond stepped up to the microphone. "This year's nominee for the Legacy Award in Innovation doesn't come with a product," he said. "She comes with a promise. A promise that movement is not reserved for the able. That rhythm lives in all bodies. That legacy is not just what we leave. It's what we lift." A light swept toward the center aisle. Jasmine rolled forward slowly, each turn of her wheel deliberate. Maya walked beside her, matching her pace. The audience quieted to a stillness that held its breath. The lights dimmed. The screen above the stage lit up. It began with a grainy video of Jasmine's early therapy sessions. Stiff hands, hesitant gestures, her face weary. Then cut to the garden terrace dance with Maya. Then to the community center, children clapping, elders laughing, volunteers moving in harmony, a young boy's voice narrated. "Before Miss Jasmine, I didn't think my body could be part of a dance. Now I lead the warm-ups." Applause rippled through the crowd, but it wasn't until the live performance began that the room truly shifted. From the back of the hall, a line of dancers entered representing every face of the still-moving project. Some on crutches, some guided by service dogs. One woman twirled with the help of a walker wrapped in streamers. They flowed down the aisles, swirling around the stage in a gentle synchronized wave. At the center, Jasmine and Maya took their place. This time there was no music at first, just rhythmed claps, taps, the roll of wheels on hardwood. Jasmine raised her arms, not as a plea, but as a declaration. The others followed, mirroring her in a rising crescendo of sound and movement. Then the piano began, not Moon River, but a new melody, something original, composed by one of the program's teen volunteers. It was hopeful, quiet at first, then building. The dancers lifted and turned, some spinning with grace, others simply rocking in place, but each movement radiated intention. It was a dance of reclamation, a dance of every room that once said no. When it ended, the room was silent for a beat too long. Then the applause began, and this time it thundered. People rose to their feet, not out of obligation, but because they couldn't stay seated. Tears shimmered on cheeks. Maya reached down and squeezed Jasmine's hand. Raymond returned to the microphone, his voice rough with emotion. I think we've already seen what legacy looks like. He paused, then added, the board has unanimously voted to fund Still Moving as a permanent initiative under the Langley Foundation. Starting immediately. Gasps and applause followed. Jasmine's heart swelled, but her eyes scanned the room for one face. She found her father near the front. Robert Langley's eyes glistened. When Jasmine met his gaze, he lifted one hand, shaky but sure, and tapped it once on the armrest of his wheelchair. A beat, her beat. Backstage, Maya handed Jasmine a towel and a bottle of water. You sure know how to crash a gala. I just told the truth, Jasmine replied, catching her breath with movement. Maya grinned. You're going to change more than just rooms. You're going to change blueprints. Jasmine looked down at her own hands. Once weak, now firm. Then let's build. 3 months after the awards, the Langley Foundation's headquarters featured something it never had before. A permanent studio space with wall-to-wall mirrors, wooden floors that welcomed wheels as warmly as bare feet, and portraits of dancers in motion, each framed with a short quote. Most of the quotes weren't from famous choreographers or philosophers. They were from participants of the Still Moving project. Movement is how my silence learned to shout. Rami Shpa. I thought my feet had forgotten joy, but they remembered. Gloria, 83. Even broken rhythm is still rhythm. Jasmine Langley. The studio was open 6 days a week. Tuesdays and Thursdays were for adaptive youth classes. Saturdays, Maya taught her signature rhythm circles where anyone regardless of age or mobility could join in with claps, taps, or simply breath. On a quiet Wednesday morning, Jasmine wheeled into the studio before the first class. The space was still, the light pouring through the tall windows like honey. She moved slowly to the center of the room where her reflection met her. For a moment, she just sat watching herself. No makeup, no gala dress, just Jasmine alive. She placed her hands on her knees and breathed deeply. This was hers. And not just hers. This belonged to every soul who had ever felt invisible, pushed aside, or forgotten. Behind her, the door creaked open. It was her father. Robert Langley had insisted on seeing the space in person. Though his health had declined, he remained sharp, quiet, and observant. He entered with the help of his caregiver and slowly made his way to a cushioned seat near the back of the room. I wanted to see the legacy, he said softly. Jasmine wheeled toward him and took his hand. You're looking at it. He smiled faintly. You know, your mother would have adored this place. I hope so, she whispered. She'd have danced, he added. Even if no one watched. They sat together for a long moment in silence. Then Jasmine said, Dad, I think I'm ready. For what? For the next step. He turned toward her, curious. I want to train instructors, expand. We have the backing now. This shouldn't stay just here in Austin. He nodded slowly. Where? Dallas, Houston, maybe even Chicago next year. There are communities waiting. I can feel them. You've got the vision, Robert said, squeezing her fingers. And now you've got the world listening. Later that day, Jasmine gathered with Maya and Kevin in the planning office. The whiteboard was already filled with scribbles, names, dates, potential partners. Maya leaned back in her chair, arms folded, eyes sharp. You sure you're not burning out? She asked. Jasmine smiled. Not yet. I'm still moving. Maya chuckled. That's my girl. Kevin added. I've already got 3 volunteers from Houston asking when we start. It all felt real. Not a project, not a patch, a movement. That evening, a small celebration was held at the studio to mark the 3-month anniversary. The core dancers gathered. Gloria baked her famous peach cobbler. Rami brought his ukulele. And several parents showed up with thank you cards and cautious optimism etched into their smiles. As the music started, an improvised beat of claps, foot taps, and laughter, Jasmine stood at the center just as she had on that garden terrace so many months ago. Maya joined her, arms wide. They didn't plan the dance. They never did. It began with a soft sway. Jasmine turned in her chair. Maya responded with a twist of her shoulders. Then Rami joined in, strumming his uke. Gloria clapped. A young girl spun with her service dog dancing beside her. No choreography, just belonging. And in the back, Robert watched, his hand gently tapping on the armrest in rhythm. After the music faded, Jasmine wheeled forward. I want to thank you all, she said, for trusting me, for showing up, for proving that rhythm isn't something you lose, it's something you rediscover. She paused, then added, I used to think I lost everything after the accident, but now I know I just hadn't started yet. The crowd clapped. She looked at Maya. You saved me. Maya shook her head. You saved yourself. I just reminded you where the music was that night. As the lights dimmed and the last guest left, Jasmine stayed behind. She rolled to the center one last time. Alone, she closed her eyes. She tapped once on her wheel. The echo bounced off the walls. A beginning, a reminder, a rhythm that would never end. 6 months later, the still-moving project had outgrown more than just its original space. It had grown beyond Austin into Dallas, San Antonio, even as far as Atlanta. 3 satellite programs had launched, each led by a new wave of instructors trained by Maya and Jasmine. The organization had become a name spoken not with sympathy but with pride. It wasn't just a charity, it was a movement, but with growth came exposure, and exposure always invited scrutiny. It began with a news article. The headline was innocuous. Langley Ayres dance program, a heartwarming distraction or PR strategy? But the body of the article dug into the program's funding sources, hinting that Jasmine had been handed the spotlight, that the movement was less about the marginalized and more about image redemption. It questioned Maya's credentials, calling her a glorified waitress turned non-profit face, and implied that Jasmine's awards were more about her last name than her merit. Jasmine read it in the early morning light, her hands clenched so tight on the tablet her knuckles paled. Kevin texted immediately. Ignore it. One bitter piece can't erase what we've built, but Jasmine couldn't ignore it. Not when the story was picked up by 3 more outlets. Not when a local council delayed a funding vote, pending more transparency. Not when a parent from the Houston chapter pulled their child from a class, citing concerns about the real motives. In the studio, Maya found Jasmine staring at the mirror, the article still open beside her. They don't know you, Maya said. They don't know us, but they're shaping how others see us, Jasmine replied. And if we lose trust, we lose everything. For the first time in months, the energy in the room dimmed. The momentum stuttered. That night, Jasmine lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the words PR strategy echoing in her mind. She thought of every step, every late night, every moment she'd second-guessed herself. Had she built something real or just dressed up her guilt? She needed to remember. The next morning, she rolled into the original Langley Community Center, now a training ground for new facilitators. There, among the mats and mismatched chairs, sat Gloria, the 83-year-old who had once shuffled in with her walker and now taught a movement through storytelling class every Thursday. Jasmine watched from the doorway as Gloria stood, swaying gently, telling a story with her arms about her first school dance during segregation when no one would hold her hand. And then Gloria said, her voice shaking. My mama told me, dance with your shadow, girl. It's the only thing that'll never leave you. Jasmine felt something break open inside her. After the class, she approached Gloria. Can I ask you something? You don't have to ask. You just need to say it. Do you think this matters? Really matters? Gloria looked her straight in the eye. Child, you could disappear tomorrow and what you built would still move. That's how you know it's real. The floor don't care about headlines. The rhythm is louder than doubt. Armed with that truth, Jasmine took action. She called a press conference, not at a polished hotel ballroom, but at the studio itself, surrounded by mirrors, scuff marks, and framed quotes. Reporters gathered. Some skeptical, others curious. Maya stood beside Jasmine, arms folded. Jasmine wheeled to the mic. "I've read the articles," she began, "and I understand the questions. I don't have a defense prepared. I have a story, my own, and hundreds of others." She gestured behind her where a projector began to play clips. Real, raw moments. Rami teaching a new student to clap to the beat. Gloria leading a memory dance. A teenage boy laughing mid-spin as his mother wept nearby. "This isn't about redemption," Jasmine said. "It's about recognition, of movement, of story, of being seen." When the questions came, she answered each one not with polish, but with honesty. She acknowledged her privilege, her doubts, her failures, and she invited every outlet to visit the studios, to speak to participants, not to spin a narrative, but to feel the rhythm. Afterward, one reporter approached her privately. "You know," he said, "I came here thinking this was a fluff piece, but something changed in there." "People do," Jasmine said. "When they stop watching and start listening." In the weeks that followed, the tide turned. Parents who'd left brought their children back. Donations resumed. One of the original critics wrote a follow-up. "We asked if still moving was real. We forgot to ask the people it was made for." The floor trembled, but it did not break. And in that trembling, Jasmine found a deeper truth. It wasn't about shielding the program from criticism. It was about letting it withstand it. Standing not on perfection, but on purpose. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Jasmine and Maya sat outside the studio. "You ever scared we'll lose it all?" Jasmine asked. Maya took a slow breath. "Every day. But then I remember we started this with nothing but a question." Jasmine smiled. "Why is she alone? May not." And we answered it with music, with movement, with fire. They sat in silence, watching kids spill out from the evening class, their laughter chasing the wind. Still moving, still rising, still ready. The day the Still Moving National Summit opened in Chicago, the city was drenched in sunlight. The venue, a converted train station now serving as a community arts center, had once echoed with departures and arrivals. Now it pulsed with rhythms of belonging. Jasmine rolled through the entrance with Maya at her side. She wore a navy blazer over a soft silver blouse, simple slacks, and a smile that was no longer hesitant. A badge hung around her neck. Founder. Maya's badge read mentor. But none of the titles really mattered. What mattered was that they had arrived, and so had over 400 participants from every corner of the country. People of all colors, ages, shapes, and mobility levels filled the space. Kids with leg braces played tag with seniors in motorized scooters. A deaf dancer taught a workshop on rhythm through vibration. Parents traded stories and hugs like old friends. It wasn't just a summit. It was a homecoming. The morning opened with a circle dance, improvised, unchoreographed, yet deeply in sync. At the center, Jasmine and Maya stood hand in hand, the same way they had on that garden terrace nearly 2 years ago. When the music faded, Jasmine took the mic. "There was a time," she began, "when I thought broken meant finished. But I've learned broken can also mean open." She paused. The room hushed. This movement began not with a performance but with a question, a simple one. "Why is she alone?" And from that, you answered with steps, with hands, with breath. She glanced toward Maya, who nodded gently. "We aren't here to perform for the world's approval. We're here to remember each other, to remind ourselves that movement isn't something you earn, it's something you own." The applause was deep, not loud, but it resonated like a heartbeat. Workshops followed, storytelling through gesture, trauma-informed choreography, panels on accessibility in the arts. Everywhere Jasmine turned, she saw sparks, people finding new ways to say, "I'm here." In the afternoon, Jasmine was called backstage. Robert Langley had arrived. Despite his worsening condition, he insisted on flying in. He entered the space flanked by two caregivers, his breath slow but steady. When Jasmine wheeled over to him, he reached out, his fingers shaking slightly. "I had to see it," he whispered. "You made it," she said, kissing his cheek. "No," he corrected gently. "You made it." He reached into his coat and pulled out a small wooden box. Inside was a ring, his wedding band. "Your mother used to tap this against the table whenever she was nervous," he said. Said it reminded her of her father's beat. "It's yours now." Jasmine took it reverently. The band was worn but warm, like it had waited for her. That evening, the closing ceremony began. Instead of a stage, the final performance unfolded on the floor among the audience. Jasmine and Maya danced again, but this time, so did everyone else. There were no spectators, just participants. The music was a slow, swelling piece composed by Rami, now 18, who had grown from shy student to co-director of youth programming. Near the end of the dance, Jasmine noticed something. Robert in his wheelchair, lightly tapping the armrest in time with the music. His caregiver guided his arm, but the rhythm was his own. And in that moment, Jasmine saw it all. The little girl once ignored at a wedding, the server who dared to ask a question. The legacy redefined not through power, but through purpose. As the last note faded, the room stood still. Then applause erupted not for a performance but for a revolution made soft, personal, and unshakable. Backstage, Jasmine sat with Maya, the ring still in her hand. "What now?" Maya asked, her voice tired but glowing. "We rest," Jasmine said. "For a minute." And then Jasmine looked out toward the crowd, still swaying in afterglow. "Then we move again." They shared a quiet laugh. Outside, the night was cool. Jasmine looked up at the sky, wide, patient, infinite. Somewhere music played from a portable speaker. A child laughed. Wheels rolled on pavement. She felt no need to speak. The rhythm was enough. And on Bup Stories.